Número 1, Mateo.
Yo llego a casa por la tarde.
Bien. 2, Jeff.
To asista a las clases de español por la mañana.
Tú asistes.
Asistes.
Mi patrón responde a los empleados por la tarde.
Mi esposa desayunes por la mañana.
Desayuna. Mi esposa would be like saying ella, she.
Ella desayuna.
Yo trabajo por la noche.
El preparar el café por la mañana.
Almost. Prepara.
Prepara.
Ella descansa por el mediodía.
Muy bien.
Tú estudia español por el fin de semana.
Tú estudias. Estudias. So when we're talking about our daily routine, it would be common to give approximate or general times or periods of time. So we're again seeing this word por is a connector word to connect one part of a sentence with another part if we're talking about an approximate period of time, right? So it can kind of loosely translate to around or about, during, or like how we say the word ish, like it, 3-ish. Let's meet up around 3-ish. It's not a precise time, it's an approximate period of time. ¿Qué hora es, Mateo, número 1, or the one on the left?
Son las. Is it? Son las 10:10.
Muy bien. ¿Qué hora es?
Son las 9
y
9 y 14. No.
That would be 14. This is 17. 9, 7.
Con 7.
17. 9 y 17.
Son las 9 y 17.
Okay, Mateo, ¿qué hora es?
Son las 8:24.
Muy bien. ¿Qué hora es?
Son las 12. I don't know.
All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
12.
Son las 12.
Son las 12.
Mateo, ¿qué hora es?
Is this? Es la 1:50 or 15, sorry.
There you go. Es la 1:15.
No, es la 1.
Jeff, ¿qué hora es?
Son las 3:05.
Yeah, here in Spanish you just say 3:05.
Son las 3:05.
Muy bien. ¿Qué hora es?
Son las 4:25.
Son las 5:13.
So 13 would be 13.
13. Okay.
How do you say 30? 10 is 10. 20 is 20. 30.
30. 35.
Son las 5:35, ¿ok? Mateo, ¿qué hora es?
Son las 7:56.
Muy bien. All right, let's take a look at a little dialogue for checking into a hotel. How about you be on the left, Mateo? And then Jeff, you're the one traveling.
Okay, bienvenida al hotel.
And so here, because Jeff is a man, we're actually going to change it. So you say bienvenido.
Bienvenido al hotel. ¿En qué le puedo servir?
¿En qué le puedo servir?
Servir.
Hola, necesito hacer el check-in.
Muy bien. ¿Y tiene reservación?
Sí, me llamo Francis Holder.
So introduce yourself as you.
Sí, me llamo Jeff Grant.
Ahí está.
¿Cómo se deletrea su apellido?
Apellido.
Apellido.
Su deletrea G-I-O-F-F.
So that's your first name. That would be your nombre. Here he's asking for your apellido.
Last name. G-R-A-R-A-N-A-T.
Hey. Hey. And the first one is not
Hey.
G, it's hey.
Hey.
Hey. So try that again. ¿Cómo se deletrea su apellido?
Hey. R-A-N-A-T.
Perfecto.
Perfecto. Aquí está. Su reservación es por 3 noches.
Así es.
Tiene una identificación y una tarjeta de crédito.
Ahí está.
Crédito. It shouldn't be that hard because it's called crédito. Tarjeta de crédito.
Claro, aquí tiene.
Tiene.
Muy bien, señor. What was his last name again?
Grant.
Grant. Señor Grant. Aquí tiene la llave. Disfrute su estancia.
Muchas gracias. Muy amable.
All right, nice job with that. Good. So let's break this down. Bienvenido or bienvenida is going to depend on the gender of the person you're talking to. And it just means welcome, right? So we're starting off saying welcome to the hotel. Same thing that we saw at the restaurant and when we're buying things. ¿En qué le puedo servir? How can I help you? How can I serve you today? Believe it or not, at least in Latin America, they use the word check-in at hotels, right? So a little Spanglish there. That's the influence that English has had on tourism around the world and certainly in South America and Latin America, right? So you would just say, necesito hacer el check-in, okay? I need to do my check-in, right? Ya tiene reservación. The word ya is an interesting word. It can mean a few different things. In this context, it means already. So the receptionist is saying, do you already have a reservation, right? You're saying, yep. Introduce yourself with your name. How do you spell your last name? It's spelled like this. And then the person says, perfect, here it is. Like I found your reservation. Your reservation is for 3 nights. Así es. That's just like a way to respond in agreement, right? Así es. Yeah, that's it. That's it. That's basically what that means. Now we're asking for an ID and a credit card. You're saying, claro, aquí tiene. Yeah, of course, here you go. When they say aquí tiene, it's like saying, here you have it, or here you go, when you're exchanging something or you're giving something to somebody. Person responds, very well. Here you have your key. Disfrute su estancia. Enjoy your stay. Enjoy your stay. Okay. And then at the end saying, thank you very much. Muy amable. This is a great term for you to get in the habit of using. It just means that's very nice of you or very kind of you. Thank you for helping me. Muy amable. Okay. So now let's switch. Now let's have you be on the left, Jeff, and Mateo, you're on the right.
Bienvenido al hotel. ¿En qué le puedo servir?
Hola, necesito hacer el check-in.
Muy bien. ¿Ya tiene reservación?
Sí, me llamo Mateo Turner.
¿Cómo se deletrea su apellido?
Apellido.
Apellido.
Se deletrea Turner.
Perfecto. Aquí está su reservación es por 3 noches.
3 noches.
Tres noches.
Así es.
Tiene una identificación y una tarjeta de crédito.
Claro, aquí tiene.
Muy bien, señor Turner. Aquí tiene la llave. Disfrute su estancia.
Muchas gracias. Muy amable.
Okay, muy bien. All right, guys. Any questions about that?
Oh,
No? Okay.
no.
We're going to switch gears a little bit today. So if you remember when you first signed up, I asked you to also buy this book, okay? What we've been doing up until now has been the actual classroom instruction piece of it. But when it comes to learning, you have to learn the language, you have to study it, you have to practice it. Like they're all equally as important. If one piece of this is missing, you're never going to learn how to speak the language. So this book addresses more the how to study and how to practice. So today I just want to talk to you about the first easy step to speak Spanish with confidence. This is a really important step. It's really easy to do. It's something that you can do on your own, and it's going to help you to really focus in on your goals with learning Spanish, help you get inspired and start learning conversational Spanish that's relevant to your life. This is what really helped me. I did this myself when I was learning how to speak Spanish. My objective is to teach you guys how to speak Spanish in 3 months or less. Not master the language, but teach you how to start speaking the language in 3 months or less, right? So we've been at this for what, 2 weeks, 3 weeks? Imagine by the end of March, you're going to be speaking enough Spanish so that you can get on an airplane and go down to Mexico and have the time of your life. If you follow these steps, if you do what I tell you to do, right? You have to do the work here. So one thing, the first easy step is to write about your objectives and your inspiration. It's different for everybody. Okay, so you have to, this is the part where you have to personalize the program for you. Okay, just to share a little bit about my experiences with learning how to speak Spanish. I tried everything, right? I've done high school classes, university classes, immersion classes, and software. I studied Spanish in total for 7 years. And here I am telling you that I can teach you how to speak Spanish in 3 months. So that's like the importance of this, right? I actually got to the point where I was ready to give up on studying Spanish. I got super duper frustrated. I didn't want to study Spanish anymore. I studied for 2 years in high school. That didn't work out for me. Like I learned a handful of bad words and, that was about it. So I decided that wasn't working. So obviously you have to go to Spain, right? So I got on an airplane when I was 18 and I moved to Spain to study Spanish. And I was in 4 hours a day of intensive Spanish classes. But I had a teacher that did not speak English. And so I did not speak Spanish. It was 4 hours a day of blah, blah, blah. And it was miserable. It was not a fun experience. Everybody always hears about the glory of going abroad and traveling and how much fun it is. It can be. I'll tell you later, I had some really fun experiences after I learned how to speak Spanish, but on this trip, I was miserable. I was ready to give up. So I was at the point, I had been in Spain for 2 weeks. I was getting ready to come back home. My mom, I was 18, talking to my mom every night. She said, if you're miserable, I'll buy you a plane ticket to come home. So I said, okay, let me think about that, right? I was seriously considering giving up on that trip and coming home. But I knew that if I came home, I was not going to learn how to speak Spanish. That would have been it. I would have given up, right? Coming home, hanging my head down in failure and not learning how to speak Spanish. So I decided I was going to sleep on it. And I decided before I went to sleep that night to write down why I wanted to learn how to speak Spanish, right? And this is the list that I wrote. This is 20 years ago, 21 years ago, because I was there for 9/11 when 9/11 happened. So it was in September of 2001. So I wrote down this list. I wanted to be able to speak with my neighbors. I wanted a Spanish-speaking girlfriend. I wanted to travel around Latin America. I wanted to speak with everyone that I worked with. And back at this time, I just graduated high school and I was working in construction. So everybody on the job site spoke Spanish. I did not want to work in construction forever. So I wanted to go to school and get a professional job. And I figured being bilingual would be great to have on my resume, right? And then finally, this is right at the start of the globalization period of the world, right? So I just figured it'd be great being bilingual because you never know, you could live and travel and work in other countries. With English, you can do that in 50 countries. With English and Spanish, you bump it up to almost 80 countries. So when I saw this on paper, I was like, I've got to stick this thing through. I've got to learn how to speak Spanish. I'm in Spain. I've got to stay. I can't give up. So I woke up the next day, called my mom, said, I'm going to stay. But something had to change because I was frustrated, right? So I started thinking like, okay, I'm in these Spanish classes. I don't understand my teacher, so I'm really not learning anything. What is it that I need to do? So imagine if you're in a brand new place in a brand new country, you have to buy things on a daily basis, right? A bottle of water, a pack of gum, whatever it is that you just need in order to live. I was living with a Spanish host family and they prepared breakfast and dinner, but I was on my own for lunch. So I had to order food on a daily basis at a restaurant, right? And then I wanted to make friends with people, I'm a social person. We need to talk to people. So I imagine if I'm going to meet somebody, I need to start introducing myself and start talking about things that you talk about when you first introduce yourself to somebody. What do you do for fun? What do you do for work? That sort of thing, right? When I kind of gave up on my Spanish classes and started kind of creating this customized program, next thing you know, I started being able to speak Spanish. About a week after this, I was hanging out in Barcelona in this kind of like downtown, this like walking area, kind of like the 16th Street Mall downtown, bunch of restaurants and shops and bars and things to do like that. I was hanging out, we were bar hopping. I was, just going up to people all night long and introducing myself in Spanish and asking if I could practice, right? Like what I taught you guys in, I think, lesson number 2 or lesson number 3. Hola, me llamo David. Podemos practicar, right? And, I was having some limited conversations, at least, striking up conversations. And then on the way home, I got into a taxi and it was about a 15-minute ride back to my house, to my apartment. And I didn't even realize it at the time. I got out of the taxi. I went back upstairs and I started laying down. I started going to sleep. And before I fell asleep, I like jumped up out of bed because it hit me that I had been speaking to the taxi driver the entire way in Spanish. 15 minutes of pure Spanish, right? That was my first breakthrough moment with the Spanish language. And that's when I realized, like, I can do this. So this was 3 weeks of living in Spain. And I had a fairly fluid conversation with this taxi driver. Obviously not going into deep detail or anything like that, but it worked. It started working. Keep in mind, I went off the course. I was in a course and I decided to kind of ignore my Spanish teacher and start focusing on what I wanted to learn. And that's when I started being able to speak Spanish. So the idea that we're discussing here is you have to not only do my program, because I am also teaching you what you really need to know to start speaking Spanish with people, but at the same time, you still need to personalize it and customize it to make sure you're learning what you want to learn. So easy step number 1 is to get a notebook that you're going to dedicate to Spanish. And then you're going to split it up into 5 different sections, right? You're going to split it up into your reasons and your objectives for wanting to learn how to speak Spanish. Another section is going to be dedicated to dialogues. Another section is going to be dedicated to vocabulary. Another section is dedicated to conversation starters. And finally, you're going to have a section dedicated to personal reflection. And this is all starting on page 15 in your book, okay? So, reasons and objectives. Why don't you guys go ahead right now and write down 3 to 6 reasons why you want to learn how to speak Spanish. Keep in mind, I have yet to meet somebody that wants to learn how to speak Spanish just so that they can speak Spanish, right? Most people want to be able to speak Spanish so that they can talk to customers or employees or their neighbors, right? They want to speak Spanish so they can make more money or so that they can travel, right? I like to kind of divide this into 2 sections, personal reasons and professional reasons. Most people have a combination of these 2 reasons. Write just a couple down that we're gonna share with each other. And then after, like later tonight and in the coming days, I'd like to invite you to keep adding reasons here. And let me know when you're ready to share.
Got mine written down.
What's that?
So I got mine written down.
Okay.
My main one is to be able to speak with my coworkers. We probably have a 80% Hispanic population that I work with.
What do you do for work again, Mateo?
We manufacture kitchen cabinets.
Manufacturing. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a production manager, engineer by trade, but production manager right now. And we use a lot of good supervisors and leads who are bilingual. But ultimately what that means is someone's translating for me and I'm not able to directly connect with them.
Sure.
So that was my main motivator.
Nice. Okay, good. Yeah. How about you, Jeff?
Well, one is like I'm in a similar situation, not as many, but I have a lot of Spanish speaking contractors that I deal with, and it would be nice to be on to speak in their native tongue to make it easier all the way around.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you speak in English, sometimes it's a struggle and things get confused and whatnot.
Cool. So, I mean, 80% of your workforce speaking Spanish, that's a huge reason for you to learn how to speak Spanish, right? Jeff, you said maybe you don't have quite as many, but in my opinion, if you have one person that you can improve your communication with, it's worth it, right?
Right.
And one of the things is like, you don't necessarily have to master the Spanish language, but when Spanish speakers, especially Spanish speakers that you work with, observe that you're trying to make an effort to learn their language and learn their culture and talk to them in their native language, they just love it. Like, even if all you ever learn how to say is hola, ¿cómo estás? Like, it just, for whatever reason, they really do appreciate it. So it will instantly help you build rapport and improve relationships. Even if, you know, you have to revert back into English, you know, every now and then, if you're trying to speak Spanish and every day it gets a little bit better, they're going to love that, right? So you should see, I would imagine at this point, after a couple of weeks, hopefully you've said hola, ¿cómo estás? To one of these guys, right? And told them you're learning Spanish.
I've got a few people in the shop I talk to regularly, but the key is they're bilingual. So I need to start getting out of my comfort zone and talking to the non-bilingual Spanish speakers.
Yeah, give it a shot. But I would imagine, have you had some favorable responses so far?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's because I don't go around saying, hey, I'm in Spanish classes, but then when I start speaking, I know enough to at least say that I'm a Spanish student.
Nice, perfect. That's how you start, right? That's how you start. And the more you can do that, the faster you're going to get to those more in-depth conversations. Cool. Well, good. This is the first part of this step. And what we're about to see, everything's going to build off of that. I want you to later on and in the coming days, keep coming back to this, try and elaborate on this, because the more you understand why, the more you're going to be able to motivate yourself and inspire yourself. And for that, you know, purpose too, I mean, for the same reasons why I did this, you know, there will probably come a time where you're like, why am I doing this? You know, you may want to give up at some point, you know. So if you truly decide to master the language, it takes a while. So and there will be uncomfortable experiences to be had if you're really putting yourself out there. So it's good to come back to this to realize why you're doing it, you know. All right, this next step is directly building off of this, right? So in your next section, after you understand why you're learning Spanish, you're going to start writing your own dialogues, okay? Now, the super important part about this is they have to be real conversations that you would really be having. Sometimes people come to me after this and they've written a hypothetical imaginary conversation. That is not the same. So I want you to think about real conversations. So guess what? Mateo, Jeff, you told me that you're learning Spanish to improve communication with people that you work with. Start writing down some simple dialogues between you and your coworkers, right? Because that's what you need to learn how to say in Spanish. They have to be relevant. They have to be practical. They have to be real conversations. So in my world, I was learning Spanish. One of my primary motivators was like the Latina ladies, right? So I wrote down my conversation that I'm having with my girlfriend or my wife, right? So the first step is you write it down in English. And as you're writing it down in your book, leave a couple of lines open, because the next step is going to be to start translating it into Spanish, right? So if I'm saying, hi, honey, how are you in Spanish? I'm going to say, hola, amor, ¿cómo estás? Right? I'm good. What do you want for dinner? I translate that into Spanish. I'm hungry. I want a steak. I translate that into Spanish. Do you want wine with that? Translate that into Spanish. Good idea. Translate that into Spanish. I love you. Translate that into Spanish, right? So that's going to be a critically important part of this. To get you speaking Spanish faster at work, start writing down conversations that you're having with your workmates, and then start translating it into Spanish, okay? Now, just a little pro tip, it's all right here. So you don't have to make anything up. You shouldn't be making anything up. Look at your text messages between you and your coworkers. Look at your emails between you and your coworkers. Look at your Facebook messages or whatever you're using to communicate with people. It should already be on your phone for you, because we use our phones for everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
So again, to really drive the point home here, it's not a hypothetical conversation, it's a real conversation. So for work, you could go through, look at your last 10 emails, but it needs to be a two-way email, right? It needs to be an exchange of information. It needs to be you sending an email, asking a couple of questions, and somebody responding to you with a couple of answers, or vice versa, right? That's the power here. That's what's going to happen here. And eventually, once you get into this, after you've done this like 3 to 5 times, you're going to start to develop, or you're going to start to notice certain patterns, right? There's going to be certain words and phrases that you're using more often than not. And that brings us to the next part. The next little portion of your book should be dedicated to vocabulary. You're going to get the vocabulary from these dialogues that you're working on, right? Again, the important thing here that is relevant, right? Here I've split up, I've given a few different examples of categories, right? One is food, just because if you do go to Mexico, you have to know how to order food. Another category is vocabulary words around the house, because when you're sitting at home, subconsciously there's something happening if you don't know how to say wall in Spanish, or if you don't know how to say table in Spanish, if you don't know how to say door in Spanish. Subconsciously, as you're learning how to speak Spanish, you're creating anxiety in your head. It's a psychological phenomenon that happens, right? So the more you start learning how to say everything that you can see, the more comfortable you'll start feeling with Spanish. But it sounds like for you guys, like these next two are really important. Learn how to say everything in your office. Learn how to say everything like your work activities, right? That would be another list of good vocabulary words. So like I'm looking at both of you guys, it looks like you're in a break room, maybe, Jeff? Or
No, I'm in my kitchen.
I was gonna say, it looks like a kitchen. That's why I was thinking it was a break room, right? So you're not at work, but Mateo, you're at work, it looks like, right? So cabinets, whiteboard, eraser, markers, paper.
As soon as we learned La Pisada, yeah, I'm set. I got my La Pisada.
Nice. Now, here's another cool one for you. Post-its, right? Start writing those words down and label things in your office.
Oh, that's a good idea.
That'll help you kind of integrate that into your day. Like the more, trust me, the more you interact with Spanish, and we're still in level 1, right? So you're not necessarily speaking Spanish yet to the point where you can go grab lunch with one of the Spanish speakers, right? But when you walk into your office and you see a sticky note that says La Pizarra, or the cabinet is El Gabinete, or La Computadora, it creates these connections in your brain. So start working on that, right?
Yeah.
This is really important because studies show that most people use 1,000 words to communicate in 80% of their daily interactions with people. 1,000 words is the basis for my hypothesis that you can learn how to speak Spanish in 3 months. And it's not that overwhelming. That's 10 words a day for 3 months. Simple. In my humble opinion, you can learn 10 new words a day. That's all it is, 10 new words a day. And you'll be able to speak Spanish in 3 months, right? So the tricky part here is, so you work in manufacturing, Jeff, you're an inspector for water and plumbing and stuff like that, right? So Jeff's using a completely different set of vocabulary words than Mateo is on a daily basis. I'm a teacher. I never talk about plumbing or manufacturing, you know? So the words that I need to learn are going to be different than the words Jeff needs to learn, which are also going to be different than what Mateo needs to learn. So I wish it were as easy as just giving you 1,000 words and say, here, memorize 10 new words a day. This is where you have to do a little bit of work on your own. When you can identify, but if you're doing these dialogues and then you're identifying these categories of words that you're using, you're going to learn those words, right? Now, another section should be dedicated to conversation starters. And this is going to get into practicing the language. There's only one way to learn how to speak Spanish, and it is to start speaking Spanish. Learning Spanish and speaking Spanish are not the same things, right? You have to train your brain to have this question and answer response to understand how the dynamics of a conversation work. And memorizing vocabulary is not showing you these exchanges, right? The dialogues will help you with that, but the only way to start actually speaking Spanish with fluently is to start having these dialogues on the fly, because there's something cognitively that happens in your brain when you're doing it, right? You have to teach your ears how to listen to the language. You have to, believe it or not, you have over 50 muscles in your face. And when you're speaking Spanish, we came across a word here, identificación, right? You were struggling when you said that word, Mateo. You're kind of stumbling over that word, right? The reason why is, one, you're looking at it and it looks like identification. So naturally, your mouth wants to pronounce it like the English word. You've got over 50 muscles in your face that you have to teach to move in a new way. And so that's why you're looking at it and you're like, oh, okay, I can say this. And then when you say it, it does not come out the way that you heard it coming out in your head, right? So it's honestly, it's like building muscle memory. You ever play golf? Has anybody ever here play golf? Or play baseball? I think playing baseball and playing golf it's a very awkward movement to swing the bat and to swing I don't know how to play. I hit the golf ball and it goes backwards. I don't even know how to make the ball go forward. That's how bad my coordination is with a golf club. So the same thing, believe it or not, is happening in your face. You have to first teach your mouth to move the right way. Now, the next part is starting to practice with people, okay? When you first start, the first time you ask somebody to practice with you, you're probably going to be nervous, right? And if you're nervous, it can cause your brain to freeze up. It can cause you to go blank. Has that ever happened where you hear somebody speaking Spanish and you're like, I'm going to go, ah. So in order to avoid that, you should have a few conversation starters that you just master. You say them over and over again to yourself. You look at them on paper, you memorize how to say them to yourself in the mirror a few times, right? Get it so that these are present in your head. So the next time you hear somebody speak Spanish, you just know exactly what to say, right? Here are my favorite conversation starters of all time. They're just about guaranteed to start a positive, friendly conversation with people. Ultimately, you can change them. You can add your own conversation starters. That's why I say create a list of these in your notebook. And depending on what you talk about with the guys at work, you may modify these, right? But my favorite of all time is this first one. That's what I taught you guys in lesson number 2. Hola, me llamo David. Estoy aprendiendo español. Podemos practicar. Out of the potentially 10,000 times I've said that to somebody, I've had less than a handful of people say no, right? If you got to be in the right circumstance. If you see somebody walking down the sidewalk and you start chasing after them, hey, that's probably not going to work for you. You're hanging out at Starbucks having a cup of coffee and a couple of guys are speaking Spanish. Hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee and practice Spanish with you? I mean, it works. It works really well, right? The next one I really like. ¿Qué te gusta hacer para divertirte? Okay. What do you like to do for fun? And kind of culturally speaking, here in the United States, we almost always introduce ourselves and ask people, what do you do for work, right? You could do that in Spanish, but it's just culturally, it's not the best way to start a conversation with somebody. And at the end of the day, I honestly hate talking about my job when I'm not working because I do it all day because I'm at work all day, every day. So when I'm not working, like the last thing I want to do is talk about teaching Spanish or English. So I'd much rather tell you what I do for fun. It's a lot more fun for me to talk about dancing or playing music or playing basketball, you know? Very much in line with that question. ¿Cuáles son tus intereses? What are your interests? ¿Qué te hace feliz? What makes you happy? Feel free to add those to your page. Feel free to use them or change them to whatever works best for you. But I can tell you that these questions are great for starting a good conversation with people. And if you can memorize them, so the next time you're standing in line at King Soopers and the guy behind you is, you know, speaking Spanish, turn around. Hola, me llamo Jeff. Estoy aprendiendo español. Podemos practicar. Hey, you got a 3 to 5 minute window of opportunity to practice with somebody. And we live in Denver, Aurora. This is little Mexico over here. I live in Montbello. It's like 70% Spanish speakers in my neighborhood. Like, I stopped speaking English 10 years ago when I moved into this neighborhood. Last section, personal reflection. This is just something that you can dedicate to you, to your thoughts. Write about what's working for you, write about what's not working for you. I think when it comes to learning something big like this, you know, like, I don't know, this is life-changing. Learning how to speak Spanish will be life-changing for you. If you can learn how to speak Spanish with the guys at work, it's going to make work a lot more fun, a lot more entertaining, a lot more, it'll just feel better. But almost all of my students start making more money. Almost all of my students, when they become bilingual, they start making more money if they're in an opportunity where they can use the new language at work, because people notice, right? It makes you more effective. It makes your coworkers happier. It makes your customers happier. Depending on the particular situation, it just makes for a better work experience. With that comes promotions. With that comes new responsibilities. It just makes, you know, if they don't make more money, they get an easier job, right? It makes their job easier. Mateo, you're not going to have to wait for the translator to come through, right?
Yeah.
You'll be able to talk to the guys at work. And that's frustrating if you have, you know, if you need to talk to this dude that put a cabinet together the wrong way, screwed up the order, or is in the active process of screwing up the order. And you happen to notice it, like, you know, you just want to tell them, don't do that. You have to explain why, but no, you can't do it because you got to wait for Jeff to come along that's bilingual, right? I'm just obviously making this stuff up as we go, but does that sound like a similar experience you've had? Or
Yeah, well, I know alto, but
good.
no, but I mean, mainly it's more so like, I think it's engaging, right? Like if imagine like if someone came up to you and all you did was have someone translate like work stuff, right? I don't know a lot about a lot of people here, unless I hear it in a roundabout way, right? So
Sure.
I don't know if they have kids, if they're married. I'll hear about it in a roundabout way, but we don't ever get to talk about it, right?
It's hard to establish deep relationships and camaraderie, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you know, establish a good work culture. So cool. So yeah, you got the book there. That was it for lesson number